Good evening, I'm Kate Murtaugh, and on behalf of the New England Executive Council, I'd like to welcome you to the third stop on the presidential tour. On September 7th, we kicked off the tour in Washington, D.C., where more than 150 alumni, parents, and friends came together to meet our new president and his wife, Lynn. Last week, more than 300 alumni, parents, and friends joined us for the New York City event. And now here we are in Boston, where over 9,000 alumni, parents, and friends call the New England region their home. And many of you are here tonight to celebrate with us during this truly exciting time for the Rensselaer community. It is now my honor to introduce our new president. Dr. Martin Schmidt began his tenure at RPI on July 1st, 2022. I believe that was 89 days ago.
89 days.
Prior to coming to RPI, Dr. Schmidt worked across the river as the provost of MIT since 2014. He was also MIT's senior academic and budget officer, responsible for the Institute's educational programs, as well as the recruitment, promotion, and tenuring of faculty. Dr. Schmidt was a faculty member of MIT's Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science since 1988, and also served as director of MIT's Microsystems Technology Laboratories and as associate provost. He was also the Ray and Maria Stata Professor of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science and is a fellow of the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. A seasoned researcher, inventor, and entrepreneur, Dr. Schmidt holds more than 30 issued US patents and has played a part in starting 7 companies. Dr. Schmidt earned his BS degree in electrical engineering from RPI in 1981. He earned his SM in 1983 and his PhD in 1988 from MIT, both in electrical engineering and computer science. It is now my honor to welcome the 19th president of Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, Dr. Martin Schmidt.
Kate, thanks so much. I think that was a really great introduction. We're going to take you on the road. So thank you all. It's just wonderful. I'm going to try and get the logistics here. There, that's a little better. It's really wonderful to be here tonight. And we're back home in some respects for Lynn and I. So many alumni, parents, and friends are joining us, and I just really sincerely thank you for making this the event it is. And as Kate mentioned, it's been the response in DC, in New York, and now in Boston has been tremendous and really heartwarming. I'm terrible at sticking to my script, but I'll try. It's hard to describe the emotional feeling it is to return to your undergraduate alma mater. I'm incredibly proud to serve as the 19th president of RPI, and then just feel so blessed to be presented with this opportunity. Before I start, I want to acknowledge some special guests and leaders joining us this evening. I apologize in advance, the list is extensive. Boston's a popular place, we all know. But first and foremost, there are a number of members of the Board of Trustees that are here with us this evening. And for me, it's kind of a thrill because these are board members who I met on WebEx during the interview, but was fortunate for the first time to meet them in person. So you already met Kate Murtaugh. Also, Gary, I think I saw you. Gary DiCamillo, are you here? There you are, Gary. I saw him on WebEx yesterday. Or was it this morning? I don't know. Now, I apologize, Judge, because every time I pronounce your name, I do it wrong. But Arthur Gaeja? Arthur? I think I saw you. There you are. Great. David Hirsch, are you with us? David? Also saw you on WebEx yesterday. And Paula Simon. Paula's here. And it was wonderful to see you, Paula. All members of the Board of Trustees. And if you don't like their selection of president, you can blame them. Because they make the decision. I'm also pleased to acknowledge members of the RPI New England Executive Council that are here today. Kate Murtaugh, you've met. John Chen, I know you're here. John, you're back there. Dawn and Brian Fitzgerald.
Dawn's over here.
Dawn's over here. Brian's over there. Have you guys met? And Joel and Jean Leader. There, Marty. Okay. I'm not very good at this, folks. And then finally, we're also joined by many of the Rensselaer Alumni Association board and Boston chapter leaders and members. I said in New York, it's my new BFF, the current president of the Rensselaer Alumni Association, who's just terrific. Megan Mulder. Megan, where are you? There you are. Thanks, Megan, for agreeing to take on that important task. And we have members of the Boston RAA chapter leadership team. If you could, I don't have all the names, so if you could just wave if you're on the leadership team of the Boston RAA. They're here. Okay, great. And then there are a lot of RPI leaders that have traveled with us from Troy and are here this evening. And every time I read this list, I think, oh my goodness, who's running the place while we're here? But I think it's in good hands. We have our Dean of the School of Science, Kurt Brenneman. Kurt, I saw you. There you are, right there. Excellent. And you've already heard the person that ushered you in is Greg Easton, the Vice President of Institute Advancement. Greg is there. Our Dean of the School of Engineering, Dr. Shekhar Garda, is right there. And then Robert, you always give me trouble because it's the Henry Burledge Professor, Director of the Center of Materials, Devices, and Integrated Systems, and Acting Vice President for Research and Vice Chair of the RPI New England Executive Council, Dr. Robert Hull. Robert's back there. Okay. Thank you. You're paid to say that. And then I'm really pleased to see her in her brilliant red jacket, my beloved Dean of the School of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences, Dean Mary Simone. There are also two staff members joining us, I believe, from the Rensselaer at Work program in Hartford. Oops, turn the page, Marty. So let me just ask them to wave. Bonnie and Justin, are you here? Have you joined us? Oh, great, there they are. And then there are a number of the people that really made this event work are the members of the Institute Advancement team that work with Greg and Institute Advancement. Just raise your hands and wave. If you like what's happening, you have them to thank. So last but not least, I want to introduce my family now. It's a big group tonight, as you might imagine. So over here, they're not lined up in order, but so my wife Lynn, who's elected to take this journey with me. So Lynn's here in a beautiful red dress. Also joining us are our four sons for the first time on the road show. Derek, Brian, where are you? There. Don't be shy, Brian. Kevin's not shy. And Daniel is also generally not shy. And Brian did it. Oh no, Annie's not feeling well, so she's not here. But also, in addition to the immediate family, some of you may have noticed that there's someone that looks very much like Lynn in the audience, and that's Lynn's identical twin sister, Sue. Sue, raise your hand. And Sue had the wisdom of marrying a guy that I met on the first floor of Bray Hall freshman year, Paul DiCrescente. So Paul's here. Paul is a second generation RPI grad, having his father having completed degrees at RPI. And then two of Paul and Sue's children are here. Cara DiCrescente is with us, and her friend Josh White. Josh, you're right there. And then also joining us, their daughter Lisa DiCrescente, class of 2015. And Lisa's husband, Richard Swarroot, who's also class of 2015. So if you're keeping score, the DiCrescentes are third generation RPI grads. So first and foremost, I want to start by stating how proud I'm standing before you this evening as the new president. And I'm pleased to share with you what I've seen and heard during my first 89 days, who's counting, and what I see as an extraordinarily bright future for RPI. You know, to put my excitement in perspective, I came to RPI as a 17-year-old kid from northeastern Pennsylvania. As I think for many of you that you've shared with me, RPI was a wonderful, transformative experience for me. It brought me the opportunity to go to MIT and have just an unbelievable career, 41 years at MIT, first as a graduate student, then a faculty member, and for the last 8 years as MIT's provost. But I was truly, truly honored to have the opportunity to return to where it all started. And to think that it's come full circle for me and my family, especially as they all join us tonight, is really unbelievable. RPI is a special place in my heart, as I'm sure it does for you and for our family members. It's also, interestingly enough, Lynn and I started dating when I was an undergraduate at RPI. We knew each other since we were 10 years old. It took me about 7 or 8 years to figure out I wanted to date her, or maybe it was the other way around. So Lynn, even though she was in college in DC, spent a lot of time on the RPI campus and likes to point out that her first in-person hockey game was in Houston Fieldhouse. Little did we know when all 4 sons played youth hockey that would not be the last in-person hockey game. But it's exciting to think that she's a hockey mom again when we met with the men's and women's ice hockey teams. Well, I said that already, so let me skip that. So since I started on July 1st, what I've been doing is what I call my listening and learning tour. I've been meeting with people in small groups. So I met with about 270 faculty in groups of about 10. I've met with more than 500 staff members at RPI and about 170 students, all in small groups. And then when I meet with them, I ask them 2 questions, basically. What is it that you love about RPI? And what do you hope to see RPI do in the future? What is your aspiration for RPI? These are important things to me because I want to understand what people love about RPI to help ensure that we preserve those things that are really important to us and that glue the organization together. And where people aspire to see RPI go helps inform me, my thinking about what we should be doing. So tonight I want to just share a little bit about what I've learned and what I'm thinking about where we want to go. I would say that I see tremendous opportunities for RPI to continue to grow and expand upon our strong tradition and reputation. We are not without our challenges. We are a financially challenged university, but as I like to say, I believe RPI is a rocket ship on the launching pad and just needs a little more fuel to go sail into orbit, and I truly believe that. I was asked once, in these listening tours, I call them the good, the bad, and the ugly, which I said, tell me what's great, tell me what's not so great. And in one of those meetings when we were talking about ugly, actually it happened twice, people said to me, so, you still sure you want the job? And the answer is absolutely, because it's just so exciting to think about where RPI can go into the future, and I can't believe I have the opportunity to help take it there. So you might ask, well, where will this rocket ship go? To what galaxies will we explore? And there's 4 areas that I can briefly touch on for you. One is education, the second is research, the third is what I call translation, and the fourth is regional engagement. And I'll weave a thread in through all of those. On education, many of you know this, but RPI enjoys an amazing reputation for being an innovator in education. As an example of that, shortly after it was announced that I would be the president of RPI, a colleague of mine on the faculty of MIT in the physics department, I bumped into him in the hallway and he said to me, Marty, you may not know this, but 20 years or so ago, MIT sent a team of physics faculty to Troy, New York, because we had heard that RPI had invented a new way to teach freshman physics based on a studio model of education. And MIT copied that model and continues today to teach freshman physics that way. That's just one example of what is a tremendous number of examples of innovation in education that is, frankly, I believe, part of the DNA of RPI. And in talking to faculty, I hear stories of the innovations that they're bringing to the classroom and the excitement that they feel about further refining and enhancing the quality of the educational experience. I think we have a tremendous opportunity to make a whole that's greater than the sum of the parts by figuring out how we link together all these exciting innovations in education. I'm looking at Mary Nod. You should see the stuff that's happening in her school and in Shekar's school and in Kurt's school. Just amazing innovations in education, and I think we could do a lot of great things there. On research, we've launched recently a number of very exciting research initiatives. Lake George is perhaps the most heavily instrumented freshwater body in the world. It's a laboratory for our research scientists to figure out how to control algae blooms and how to ensure a safe and stable freshwater ecosystem. That's one example. We recently announced a partnership with Mount Sinai in New York, where we'll be working on a Center for Engineering and Precision Medicine. And we have activities in Brooklyn, largely headed up by the architecture school, to thinking about the urban environment and how we can build urban environments that are sustainable into the future. And I'm excited to think about the reach of RPI going up and down the Hudson and the opportunities that presents to us in the future. But there's lots more we can do in research, and I think the faculty and we are all excited about expanding our research footprint. The other thing, so education research, the other thing I've been focused on is translation. And the way I would describe it is that basically the way in which ideas move out from the university and have impact in the world has evolved quite dramatically over the past 40 years. And I believe it's no longer sufficient to hand a student a degree and point them in the direction of industry and hope that the things they've learned will go out and have impact. And we see increasingly coming out of universities, startups, new nonprofits, which allow our graduates to take their passionate ideas and have them have impact in the world. But to do that, you have to build the runway. You have to build the pathways that help the students and the faculty know how to get these new ventures created and how to make them flourish. And I'm excited to see that even in downtown Troy, we have new startups coming out of downtown Troy that are a result of recent graduates of RPI. And I think we can do more to help facilitate this translation of ideas that will also obviously continue what frankly is an amazing renaissance that's occurring in downtown Troy. And sometimes those of you that may not have been to Troy in the past, in less than 10, if your last visit to Troy was more than 10 years ago, come back. It's truly a city transformed, and it's on a growth path that's breathtaking, and frankly, it was one of the things that made me very excited about this opportunity. And that leads me to my fourth point, which is regional engagement, which is that I've learned in my time at MIT that when institutions that are deeply committed to a region and have the capacity to think long term, when those institutions come together at the leadership level and reflect on things they can do together that strengthens the region, great things can happen. And I think it's important for us at RPI to be thinking about what can we do with our partners in the region that help advance the Capital District. And I just think the opportunities there are immense, and I'm excited about that. And the last thing of the education, research, innovation, and regional engagement is I think it's incredibly important in everything we do and everything we contemplate that we think about how do we make sure what we're doing is inclusive and welcoming to everyone, so that everybody can do their best work. And I think that has to be a conscious act in all we do. So that's what I've learned and what I look to in the future. I'll be talking more about that in the inauguration next Thursday. Oh my goodness. I'm told it'll be live streamed, so if you can't make it out to Troy, I invite you to watch it. If you like what you heard, let me know. If you don't like what you heard, let me know. But before I want to close, I want to thank all of you for supporting the Institute through your generosity and philanthropic support. We're in the middle of a transformative campaign. More than 35,000 of you, alumni, parents, and friends of the Institute, have supported the campaign with more than 185,000 gifts. and we appreciate your continued support as we continue to strive towards the $1 billion campaign goal. So with that, I want to thank you for listening to me. And Lynn and I and my family look forward to further conversations, but I always have to look at Greg and do a time check to see how many questions can I, two to three questions. So I'd be happy to entertain 2 to 3 questions.
If you have a question, raise your hand and Berta will bring you to.
Yeah.
This is not a question.
Oh my goodness. This is a ringer.
This is Steve Martin.
Steve, there's a microphone if you want it.
Oh, microphone.
Steve never turns down a microphone.
I have a lot of ways. I was in Steve Centuria's living room just a couple weeks ago, and I think I can speak and say he and I are very proud to see what you have done, and we hope you the best of it. So,
Thanks, Steve. Any other questions like that? There's one back here.
Thank you. Lisa Murray, a sophomore in neuroscience, and just from talking to other parents and the students abroad, we just want to thank you very much for open communication that, with the students that you felt that you didn't have before. So I think it's been a very welcoming new experience for them. But on that note, we have heard some dissatisfaction with the ARCH program. So I'm just kind of curious, what is the future that, knowing that I have a sophomore and you've got a kind of plan?
Yeah. So, I was asked a question last week, are you going to get rid of the ARCH? And the answer is I don't think we should. I really do think one of the things, there's a lot of things that I think are really, the aspiration of the ARCH I think has a lot of wonderful things about it. One of which is, and I saw this at MIT, your students were top of their class, excelled in everything they did, received tremendous accolades. And when they arrive at a place like RPI, all of a sudden they're amongst people that all had the same thing. And then they're faced with a curriculum that perhaps is one of the most challenging curriculums they've ever experienced. And one of the things you find is that has an impact on self-confidence. And one of the opportunities that the ARCH presents is for students to go out, find an opportunity, and pursue it. And the students that I've spoken to in my 170 sessions, or in my sessions with the 170 students, is that the ones that come back from ARCH, I can't tell you how many times I've heard them say, wow, my employer couldn't believe that I knew what I knew, and was so impressed with the knowledge that I had that I brought to that experience. And I think that's really powerful to receive that kind of feedback from an external source when you've got another year to go and you're going to be searching for opportunities. That sort of, the boost in self-confidence is tremendous. And there are many other things I could say. Having said all that, we do have issues we have to address. And so we've put together a group. Peter Konworski is not here, our Vice President for Student Life. He wasn't feeling well and sent me a text, but we've got a group of people that are looking at what are some of the pinch points, and we have a very concrete list of things, and the team is working very hard to address it.
Thank you.
Thank you. One more. There it is.
Berta right here. Fill her off from left. Raise your hand.
My name is Ken, New York, class of 1980. I just wanted to, I was inspired by your two questions. What do I love about RPI and how I'm interested in evolve? And number one, it's actually just what you said. I've done a lot of hiring over the past 5 years. The RPI students that we hired are just terrific and far more prepared than I was when I graduated over 40 years ago. I wanted to ask you about, at least what I've seen online, RPI's reputation as far as censorship and free speech. Is that real in your view? And if it is, what would you do about it? And if it isn't real, if it's a big misunderstanding, do you have maybe a PR strategy to see if that reputation can be dismissed?
So anticipating that question, I made some notes. So what you're referring to is there's an organization called FIRE that developed a ranking of universities based upon how open the campus is to free speech. So as you might imagine, I took some interest in that, especially when I got a letter from them. So how did they come about determining the low ranking that RPI received? They surveyed students last year. They surveyed 200 students. That's 3% of the student body. So, you know, I wonder how good that is a representative summary of what the students have experienced. And one of the quotes that they offered in particular, I think, is reflection of an experience back in 2016, but this quote was attributed to a class of 23 students. The student said, "We are not allowed to have peaceful protests, and that students will get expelled for just sitting on the grass." I'm virtually certain we do not have a policy that will expel students based on sitting on the grass. So I would say one of the things about surveys is that they can be quite helpful from a financial perspective and a visibility perspective of the organization that does them. And the U.S. News and World Reports is a stunning example of that. So I'm not trying to feed that thing, but I will point out that the RPI Student Handbook specifically says students and student groups shall be free to examine and discuss all questions of interest to them and to expose opinions publicly and privately, and to express opinions publicly and privately. So I think our compass is clear in terms of the value that we assign to free speech. As provost at MIT, I had to make sure that a group that had invited Chelsea Manning to speak on the campus was allowed to do that, in spite of the fact that I had members of the intelligence community informing me of the consequences of Chelsea Manning's actions. So I think we're very clear about that. But I don't want to fuel a fire, which in some respects is promoting the public interest of that organization. So sorry for the long answer, but I will honestly say I have no concerns. But we do live in a time when we're a divided society, and we have to work hard across the board and certainly on campuses to make sure that those statements that are in student handbook we live up to. So I don't want to dismiss the concern. It's a legitimate concern, but I think we're clear. So Greg's giving me the nod. So what I always forget to do is to say that we're going to do a picture, and I'm told that the family's going to stand here.